Regarding the question about verification, does verification really solve the problem? Well, it doesn't. I know that's not what anybody wants to hear. The verification vendors don't want to hear it. Actually, they want us to believe the opposite. The organizations behind the standards, they don't want to believe it, because they're the ones who are responsible for making sure that those vendors can solve the problem. Then the DSPs and other platforms that are giving guarantees, ad fraud-free guarantees, they definitely don't want to hear that, because the way they're giving those guarantees is based on a verification solution. Agencies really don't want to hear that, because they know that their advertiser partners trust them and they are choosing those vendors for them. And advertisers don't want to hear that, because they often feel that that's the only thing that they can do right now, is to trust on the verification vendors to solve the problem. Robust evidence, both public and not public, goes to demonstrate that verification as an approach, as a paradigm, is coming nowhere near solving the ad fraud problem. One of the reasons is conflicts of interests. We have verification vendors working with both buy-side and sell-side players. In the buy side, they might work directly with an advertiser, or they might work with an agency partner of the advertiser. On the sell side, they might work with an exchange, or then we could, of course, something that DSP is positioned on the buy side, but actually it's more of a sell side player in many different ways if we objectively look at the way the supply chain is structured. But that's beyond the point here. The point is that DSP and advertiser have conflicting interests. So it's very difficult when there is a verification vendor that works with two parties that have conflicting interests. Consider what happens in the stock market when you have a verifying party, an agency, a verifier agency, a stocks rating or ratings agency who rates investments. But they get their money from investment banks that are selling those investments. Well, that's exactly what we have now happening in the online advertising industry. And that's exactly what was found as one of the principal issues leading to the 2008 financial crisis and the meltdown of the global financial system. So that is exactly where we are today, is that we have companies who are selling assets, media assets, to buyers. And then we have verification companies, verifiers, who are verifying those assets and are being paid by those companies that are selling those assets for verifying them. So it's very hard to understand how that type of ecosystem would actually solve the problem of ad fraud. Now, that said, there are scenarios where it can be very useful to work with a verification vendor. For example, if already many other things are being done, it is a useful complement. There is no question about it. The other case, of course, is that if you just have to do one thing for some reason, that really should never be the case. But if you really just have to do one thing and one thing only, well, somebody might say it should be working with verification vendors. And maybe for somebody that does make sense. So when we start and we just want to do one thing, yeah, one of the options is to just start working with a verification vendor. But we really shouldn't kind of fall under the spell of all kinds of claims and then feel a false sense of security and think that our investment is now safe. That is not the case. There is so much more that goes into this topic of, or the question of, does verification solutions solve the problem of ad fraud? And when we talk about learning about ad fraud, when we talk about understanding ad fraud, it would be very important to develop substantial understanding regarding the topic of verification. And because it's quite difficult to understand the technical aspects of the verification topic, we should actually focus mostly on the game theory aspect. How are different stakeholders incentivized to act? And then go through those kind of play-by-plays that game theory allows us to go through and see where do we end up with that. Can we use game theory to assess what is going on right now in online advertising industry regards to verification and ad fraud in a way that can help us to make better decisions? And the answer to that is definitely yes. And it is much more doable for us than understanding all the possible technical details that relate with this topic. I would really encourage advertisers to look for partners, verification partners, that are only working with advertisers, who make that commitment to just work with advertisers. And I would further make sure that the agency partners that you are working with are ensuring the same. So a verification company that is working with a platform through which advertisers and their agency partners buy media, such as a DSP, that verification partner is not a suitable partner for the advertiser because of the conflict of interests that come with that relationship the vendor has with the platform, such as a DSP.